every morning with drive. Being on the grind, know I had to survive. We had to win. Started from the dirt and the rubble. I had to be the needle that was popping your bubble.
Hello and welcome into the Rookie Prospect Profile Series, a Zilla Fantasy Elite production. Today we're going to be looking at wide receiver Marvin Harrison Jr. within these wide receiver machine learning models. Marvin Harrison Jr. was drafted number 4 by the Arizona Cardinals, and they come into the league out of the Ohio State University. Looking at the physical traits, we can see that Marvin Harrison Jr. is 6'3", 205 pounds. That's what we use for the purpose of the machine learning model. He didn't do any testing, so those went in as blanks just to give you a heads up on that. So if we get into Marvin Harrison Jr.'s rookie year model, what do we see? We see after running 1,000 simulations in the model that Marvin Harrison Jr. looks like this with a range of 5.71 in the minimum all the way up to a maximum of 16.63 and all those variations in between. So 10th percentile, 9.42 PPR fantasy points per game, 25th percentile, 10.57 fantasy points per game. The mean and median pretty close there, 11.70 for the mean, 11.78 for the median. And then the 75th percentile, 12.94 and 90th percentile, 13.92 fantasy points per game. See the bell curve there in terms of what it's expecting for him in year one based on the inputs. Again, these rank pretty highly. The minimum through this median, so minimum 10th percentile, 25th percentile, mean and median, all number 1 in the class. This is out of 39 different prospects. The 75th, 90th percentile, second best in the class. So there's somebody with a little bit higher end for him. And then the maximum output at 16.63 fantasy points per game. That's actually third in the class. Getting into some of the statistics, the standard deviation was 1.84 fantasy points per game away from the median, which was 7th best in the class. And then the CV, so the coefficient of variance, number 1 in the class there at 15.7%, meaning the model thought he was the most confident, or the model was the most confident in his output for the rookie season. And just to give you some idea in terms of what these numbers mean, that mean median at 11.70, Christian Watson in his rookie year was 11.72, DK Metcalf 11.6, Cooper Kupp in his rookie season 11.8, so it's putting him right in there for the median production. That maximum 16.63. Well, there wasn't very many people that reached that. Mike Evans is actually number 6 on the list at 16.3 for his output in the rookie season. Michael Thomas, the Saints wide receiver, was at 17.0. Justin Jefferson 17.14. So it's really telling us his maximum output could be upwards of the Michael Thomas, Justin Jefferson range. Puka Nacua last year 17.56, but really it's kind of maximum out at that 16.63. And again, he's third in the class in that category. So let's get into year number 2 for Marvin Harrison Jr. And we see he increases in his range here. His minimum goes up to 8.08. So that's the worst prediction out of the 1,000 that was made. Maximum all the way up at 18.43. Then we see 10th percentile, 10.79, 25th, 11.98 fantasy points per game. Mean and median at 13.07 and 13.14, respectively. 75th and 90th percentile, 14.22 and 15.19, respectively. Basically, second year for Marvin Harrison Jr., he's second best in the class across the board from minimum all the way through the maximum. So already one person better in all those categories than Marvin Harrison Jr., but as expected, he is a stud in this class. And looking at the standard deviation, he comes in at 1.74 fantasy points per game, which is actually 20th in the class. But again, that CV, 13.3%, is number 1. You might be wondering why that is. Well, standard deviation is going to go up the more points, fantasy points per game. We have a lot of people in year 2 not doing a whole lot, so their standard deviation is going to be smaller because maybe they're only predicted to get 3 or 4 fantasy points per game, and then having a standard deviation is going to get a little bit smaller there. So you might be wondering why that is. and that is why. So year 2, what does this look like? What do we have for fantasy output from people in year 2? Well, we got some people that are really high up there. So looking at that max of 18.43, actually 5th best ever in all time is Juju Smith-Schuster. In his second season, he had 18.4 fantasy points per game. So that's kind of where they're saying Marvin Harrison Jr. is maxing out. Allen Robinson had 19 in his second season. A.J. Brown was at 17.68 in his second season in the league, getting towards that median output of 13, just over 13. We're looking at guys like Darnell Mooney at 12.9, Sterling Shepard in his second year, 13.1, Tyrell Williams, 13.8, Kenny Golladay, 13.8, John Brown, 13.8, a little bit lower than that. Guys like Cameron Meredith, Garrett Wilson last year, 12.54, Keenan Allen, 12.5 in his rookie season, George Pickens, 12.28. So get an idea of what it's thinking Marvin Harrison Jr. will do in his second season. Now let's get into the third season for Marvin Harrison Jr. and see what that looks like. Goes a little bit down in that minimum range at 7.59. Maximum goes all the way up to 19.89 for him in this particular year 3 model, which again, it's doing 1,000 predictions. It's taking everybody that finished a single snap in year 3, looking at Marvin Harrison Jr.'s inputs and seeing what is the most likely output in terms of his third year in the league. 10th percentile, 25th percentile outcomes, 12.02, 13.36 fantasy points per game. So we're really getting up there in terms of, these are wide receiver 2 at the worst numbers. Mean and median, 14.58, 14.71. 75th and 90th percentile, 15.96 and 17.00 fantasy points per game. And again, that max close to 20 at 19.89. Standard deviation in year 3 was 1.95, which was the 24th ranked standard deviation in year 3. But again, CV number 1 at 13.4%. So what do year 3 wide receivers look like? Getting into the mean and median range, that 14.5 to 15 range, we're looking at guys like Devonta Smith in his third season, Steph Diggs at 14.2, Jarvis Landry 14.3, DK Metcalf 14.37. So they're a little bit below. And then a little bit above, we have Will Fuller at 15.2, Hunter Renfrow in his third season hit 15.24. Devontae Adams, 15.3. Kenny Golladay, 15.5. Tyler Boyd was at 15.8. So kind of looking at the median outcome there for him. And then the maximum, 19.89. Really, we only have a few people that were better than that. Michael Thomas at 19.7. Chris Godwin at 19.6. Then we have Keenan Allen in his third season hit 20.2. Tyreek Hill, 20.5. DeAndre Hopkins, 20.6. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 20.68. So we're looking at people, starting it again in the top 3 there. Justin Jefferson, best season 3 overall at 21.69. Debo, number 2 at 21.19. So really putting him close to the top in terms of his maximum. Getting into those ranks, though, he was number 1 in the mean on down, so mean 25th, 10th, and minimum in the class for year 3, but number 2 in terms of the median output and the 75th percentile, number 3 in the class and the 90th percentile outcome, and then actually 4th in the maximum output there at 19.89. We had 3 prospects with a higher ceiling than him in year 3. It's just what the model's spitting out. Again, he didn't do any testing, so that kind of affects the model as well. Now, getting into year 4, the final year of our outputs for this rookie prospect profile series for wide receivers. We see that Marvin Harrison Jr.'s range here is 3.69 fantasy points per game on the minimum side, and then all the way up at 21.35 for his maximum output there. Pretty much a top 3 across the board in terms of rank. Minimum at number 3, 10th percentile at number 2, 90th percentile at number 2, and maximum output at number 2. The rest of them first across the board. So 25th mean and median and 75th percentile outcome, all best in the class. The standard deviation for year 4 at 2.83 was actually the 4th best in the class and comes in with the 3rd best CV in the class at 23%. So what do some of these numbers look like for Marvin Harrison Jr. in terms of fantasy points. So 3.69 is the minimum output, 8.30 at the 10th percentile, 10.40 at 25th percentile, mean and median at 12.28 and 12.59 respectively. 75th and 90th percentile, 14.28 and 15.65 fantasy points per game. And again, that maximum output at 21.35. So what does 21.35 look like? Well, that would be number 3 all time. We have CeeDee Lamb at 23.72 in his 4th year. Michael Thomas at 23.4 in his 4th year. And then number 3 on that list is Justin Jefferson at 20.22. So really it's saying, hey, his maximum output is probably going to be somewhere in that Michael Thomas, Justin Jefferson range. And he is that good of a prospect. We could see him max out at that particular spot. Getting into the mean and median range, 12.28, 12.5 there. Starting to look at Christian Kirk in his 4th year, 12.21. Will Fuller again, 12.2. Keenan Allen, 12.3. We've seen him in a lot of the lists, so kind of seeing him. DeAndre Hopkins in his 4th year was at 12.3. Again, these kind of dropped off from their year 3 output. So why did that happen? I don't know, but the machine learning model takes all of that into consideration. It's looking at, here's what they look like coming out of college with their draft capital. Here's what happened in year 4, and this is what I expect to happen. So Jacoby Myers, 12.9. Deebo Samuel, again, 12.95 in his 4th year, dropped all the way down from being the 2nd best in his 3rd season. So that's what it looks like for Marvin Harrison Jr. in his rookie prospect profile. We see a lot of Keenan Allen, a lot of DeAndre Hopkins in his profile. Again, expected to be a stud, and really, I expect that to be essentially the most bust-proof wide receiver in this class. We'll see what people were coming in higher ranked than him, especially on that max end. The profile didn't necessarily like him as much on the high end, but again, he didn't do a lot of testing, so that could be dinging him in the score. And really, it's going to just output an average of the next closest 15 players to him in the model to fill in the gaps for where he doesn't have any physical or athletic testing traits. So keep that in mind. All right, so hopefully this machine learning model series can give you a little bit of additional confidence in making some of the analysis that you're doing for each incoming rookie and your rookie drafts coming up. That's going to do it for today's rookie prospect profile on Marvin Harrison Jr. It's presented by Zilla Fantasy Elite. Thanks for tuning in.